Max Domi returns to the ice and Easton Cowan continues to impress in camp. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. What's going on, Dave? How are we feeling on a Thursday?
Feeling pretty good, Another day where camp he's getting closer to the regular season. Only a few weeks away.
Yeah, it's coming quick. And tonight will be a little bit of a first look at what night one of the regular season could look like, or at least game one, night two, I suppose, the regular season. Maple Leafs going into Montreal for a little preseason action. I'd imagine that we'll see a lineup similar to what we saw Sunday in Ottawa, the kind of road squad, the B squad, we'll call it. I would imagine will make their way down to Montreal, and the Canadiens, I would imagine, would play most of their starters being the home team. So, what we're going to see from this game, I suppose, we'll find out together what the lineup looks like. And I'm sure all the young kids will be vying for spots. I'll be curious to see if Easton Cowan gets an opportunity out there, and he's been kind of drawing some rave reviews in practice the last couple of days, especially coming off that game. We'll get to all of that and more throughout today's show. We'll tee up the game tonight and talk about the praise on Easton Cowan and whether or not he's making a case to make the team out of camp. But we got some updates from training camp from Wednesday's practice. Max Domi back on the ice and was skating on the third line. Dave, what'd you make of that?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that him being back, they would try to, this is the time where you experiment and move things around. So maybe they just want to ease him into things, or they liked what they saw from Mitchell and just like, okay, we'll just keep him there for now. Like, I think out of all the people that should be kind of happy to see where the fourth line shaped out, it's Bobby McMann. The guy was going to be penciled into a third line role, and he's been now earned another shot to stay in the top six.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby McMann sticks in the top six, and with Max Domi getting that shot on the third line, Easton Cowan penciled in with Lorenz and Lawton on the fourth line. Your boy Nicky Bobby is kind of looking like the odd man looking out too here, though.
Yeah, I don't know if we get another preseason MVP performance from Nick Robertson, he doesn't make the roster. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough.
I think he makes the roster. It's just whether or not there's there's an active spot in the lineup for him is a whole other story. I mean, I don't know, man. It's really bizarre. Like Brad Treliving was making the rounds when training camp opened up. He spoke to the media, was on, the various television and radio shows. And even he said, like, there's more NHL bodies in camp than there are seats, on this team. And it's true. They've got like 15 NHL bodies signed to contracts. That's not even including Easton Cowan. And, well, there's only 13, 14 spots tops for these guys. So, someone's not going to make the team, but it also means like there's only 12 that can actually play on any given night. So 3-4 of those guys are going to be sitting. They're going to be up in the press box, right? Like David Kampf, a guy who's been a regular in this lineup for the last few years. He hasn't really done anything to wrestle away a bottom six spot from anybody. He seems to be, kind of penciled in as a 13th forward. Nick Robertson is kind of in the similar boat. I don't know, things are starting to kind of shake out just based on how these line combinations are looking through the first week of camp. We're getting a chance to kind of see, okay, this is where Craig Berube's mind is at, what he wants to get a look at, and what has continued and persisted to be lines throughout camp. It really seems like those two are kind of the odd man out. And I don't know. It's real interesting. I don't know if there's much trade value for either of those two players. Obviously Nick Robertson is not that he's come out publicly. Well, he did about a year ago, came out and said he wanted a trade. Never happened. Didn't quite happen this summer the same way, but he did let it be known that this is the situation he's in and he's going to try and fight for a spot in camp, but just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of opportunity for him.
No, and like the Leafs have put themselves in this position by having so many bodies, right? Having so many forwards. And I think if you have asked majority of Leafs fans what percentage they see Easton Cowan making the roster or even the open night lineup over Nick Robertson, I still think even though Nick Robertson's had a hard time earning himself an opportunity, I think many would still have put their weight behind him versus an Easton Cowan, because we thought the young guy would have to really do a lot to take a spot of somebody else. But I think it just goes to show what Craig Berube, certain players seem to just have exactly what Craig Berube needs. Right?
Well, is Cowan the biggest threat to Nick Robertson? I don't even think Cowan could not make the team, and Robertson still isn't in the opening night lineup. I mean, I don't know if that's the biggest threat. If you're Nick Robertson, you're not really looking at Cowan as the guy. I mean, yeah, that could be a threat to being on the active roster. You could get waived, I suppose. That is a possibility. Unlikely, but a possibility. For me, it's you got to go and you got to try and beat out a Michelli. You got to beat out a Max Domi, who's now back and healthy, and he's in the middle six. Bobby McMahon, who's in the middle six. You're fighting with Calle Yarncroc for maybe a fourth line role with the team here. That's really who you're battling with at this point. I think Easton Cowan might have an opportunity. We'll dissect that in a little bit. Some comments have been made over the last 24 hours that make you think that, okay, maybe he's, showing up a little bit more than we thought. And maybe he's, starting to make that decision a little more difficult to send him straight to the AHL. But, in terms of Robertson, if I'm looking at my internal competition, there's a couple other guys on the roster that I'm more worried about, I guess, than Cowan right now.
Yeah, no, if I'm Nick Robertson, it's the guys who have, NHL experience, guys really the writing was on the wall for Cowan when Michelli, as you kind of pointed, Michelli, Watt, and Joshua. You bring in 3 quality NHL players, it's like, okay, I think I'm pretty much gotten the message. They clearly have gone with a certain player that I am not. And I think that's probably the mindset he's had, right? I can only do so much. It's what the coach's decision. We know, the other thing is, yes, Craig Berube likes the players that are big and physical and all those things. But I just also think he it's the trust of knowing what those players are going to do each and every night. Like Nick Robertson, he does provide offense, but it's up and down. And when he's not providing the offense, we've seen him do things that guys in his position can't do, which is take bad penalties, or defensively it's not all there. He's not the most physical, so he can't really provide that area of the game that Brewer wants. So it all just comes down to there's players that are going to give a little bit more, maybe sacrifice a bit offensively to get all those other intangibles.
It's funny you mentioned, not taking as many penalties, which definitely is something that, Robertson dealt with a year ago. Another player who took a lot of penalties was Max Domi. And again, back on the ice today, getting a shot on the third line. At some point, maybe he gets a chance up in the top 6. Kind of seems like it's a logical spot for him, especially if the third line is going to be a, defensive shutdown line. But it's funny, you listen to Craig Berube speak today in practice, and when asked, like, what does a good season look like for Domi? He talked about the penalties, cleaning up the penalties, being more disciplined, took way too many penalties a season ago. And then he wants him to shoot more. Those are the two things that he's looking for out of Max Domi. Just clean up the penalties and shoot more, and you're gonna have a much better season than he had a year ago. Like, that was a down year. That was not a good year, good season for Max Domi last year. Clearly, I think we all that was one of the worst seasons that he's had in a while, possibly since he's established himself at the NHL level in his career. Partly because he just refused to shoot the puck. There wasn't a lot of confidence there. And man, did that guy ever take way too many trips to the sin bin. So it's funny when you ask, the coach, hey, what's a good season look like for Max Domi? Didn't mention goals, didn't mention points, didn't mention being responsible defensively. He said, clean up the penalties and shoot a little more, and things should come. So he believes in Domi, believes in his skill set at the very least. As long as he can just clean up those penalties, the dumb stuff, the stick penalties, the tripping, the roughing, stuff like that, and then just show confidence in your shot. He believes that he has a good shot, and it'll score a little more as long as he uses it. So, hearing that type of glowing remarks on Domi again leads me to look at Nick Robertson. It's like, haven't heard Berube talk that nicely about Nick Robertson, at all this offseason or last year, so it's like, okay, again, Domi has the edge over Nick Robertson, and there's just not a lot of chairs left for him. It is seeming like a very, very large uphill climb at this point. And now even Easton Cowan, as you mentioned, is starting to become a bit of a threat. It's not the biggest threat, but he's a bit of a threat. Why don't we come back and let's get into the comments that the coach made about Easton Cowan and how much of a surprise that he's been early in training camp. So we'll get to that and more next on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $500, and if your bet wins, we get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. Allows me to bet on player props, same-game parlays, live bets, and even some futures. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. Free and available. The Locked On Leafs podcast can be found wherever you get a podcast and also on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and get that daily dose of Maple Leafs content directly to your phone or your computer, tablet, whatever you use to consume your podcasts. So Max Domi back at practice, and Easton Cowan was another name that was brought up and spoken about quite highly at today's practice. Even yesterday after the game, really, Coach Craig Berube had some good things to say. We're 2 games into training camp. Easton Cowan, has played in them, and he ended up with an assist in the game on Tuesday. And we'll see if he gets another opportunity to play tonight against Montreal. I would think they want to get as many looks at Easton Cowan as they possibly can. So we'll see if he gets an opportunity to play that 3rd preseason game tonight. But really seems like he is starting to turn some heads down at Leafs camp, doesn't it, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, for a young player, we've heard how Craig Berube can be with young players at times, and it's tough to get, match those expectations that a veteran coach has. But he's had really good things to say about how simple of a game he plays. Mm-hmm. And you think simple, you want to hear a little bit more than that for a young prospect, especially one that people hope can really elevate himself in the lineup. But I think that's a good thing. It just means that he's taking whatever the coach is saying the right way, and he's doing the things that he needs to do to better position himself to, see himself play NHL games maybe sooner than we think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at what Berube had to say, and here's what he said after game two. He said, "quote I liked Easton's game. He did a lot of good things. He was physical. He played direct. Got some opportunities on net. Overall, I liked his game." And then continued to say he has abilities out there with making plays and things like that, which he showed me tonight. But were they the right plays at the right time, which is important. I thought that he played direct all game and he worked and hounded, back checked, did a lot of good things. So that's completely different from what he said a year ago about Easton Cowan, where he talked about, those junior habits that have to get coached out of his game. It didn't sound like he was talking about any junior habits anymore. And that was the point of sending him back to junior to get those habits out, right? Sending him back to London with Dale, with the Hunter brothers, with Dale Hunter and Mark Hunter, and have him, play an NHL style game. And it sounds like it worked, right? Even Matthew Nyes spoke about him afterwards. He said, I think he's, really good. I know, what did Matthew Nyes say? Hold on. He's grown as a player and a person. I think he's gotten a lot better, a lot faster, and it's fun to see. I think he's just gotten a lot more comfortable with the guys. He definitely talks a little more, and that's a good thing. He's a bit more comfortable on and off the ice. So sounds like things are going very well for Easton Cowan right now. And, he's being given an opportunity. He's skating in practice, at least, on what looks to be a regular line on the fourth line with Lorentz and Lawton. My question to you, though, Dave, is is that good for Easton Cowan? For him to, if he breaks camp as the fourth line winger, like a bottom six winger, is that good for Cowan's development?
If he's going to be playing consistently to start, I would like almost like what Fraser Minton did, then I can see some benefit. But if he's going to play
consistently as in every night, or like you need to see 14, 15 minutes every night?
I mean, yeah, he can't be playing like 9 minutes a night. That's the problematic part of this, right? Because even now he's getting 13, 14 minutes a game, which to me is light. Like, I understand if he can play those 13, 14 minutes really well and, it helps the team. I get that part, but you can find somebody else to play 13, 14 minutes and allow Easton Cowan to play the maybe 17, 18 minutes with the Marlies and really improve on those aspects of the game there. Because, like, what's he really going to offer on the fourth line? Yeah, he'll provide a little of offense, but at the same time, I'd rather see him play just an elevated role with the Marlies so that when there is a need, let's say somebody gets hurt, you want to be able to say, okay, let's call Easton up and he can go and he can play, more minutes than just the 13, 14 he'll be accustomed to. Not even 13, 14 minutes on the fourth line.
Question. If Easton Cowan breaks camp and is one of the Leafs' best 12 forwards, like, is that not good enough to have him on the team?
I think so. Like, if he plays well enough to earn himself a spot.
Yeah, but like that could mean a fourth line role where he's playing 10, 11, 12 minutes a night. Like, is that fine?
I think it's fine if you're okay with it for a little bit, but if that's going to be the consistent thing, is it worth burning the what is it?
We're not burning anything. Well,
right.
No, because that's only if you're going back to junior, right? I mean, no matter what, and even in the AHL, you're still
even the 40 games that bring them closer to our there's the 40 games of NHL.
Maybe arbitration, could that have something to do with that? Possibly.
I mean, I'm not as worried about that just because of where the Leafs are with their contract.
Yeah,
I think for me it's just what do they see him as a long term? What's the long term outlook for him? If they believe long term outlook is him being a top six guy, but they feel like offensively there's still things to work on, it's not going to be able to really do that in the fourth line.
Yeah,
he's not playing with top offensive players there.
Well, I've spoken to a couple of, scouts and some former league executives, and it like when they project Easton Cowan, they still only project him as like a middle six player, right? Like he doesn't seem to be projected as a top line stud. Like his ceiling isn't Ivan Demidov's ceiling, right? Like out in Montreal. Like that guy has top line star capabilities. Doesn't seem like a lot of scouts see that from Easton Cowan. Could he get there? I suppose. I mean, like any player can surprise, but from what he is based on his size, his skill set, his speed, um, it appears as though he's more so going to turn into just a quality, you know, middle six player, whether that's a great two-way third liner or a good second line winger who's also responsible defensively. Seems to be what his height will be if he lives up to the potential. There's an argument to be made that getting an opportunity to play fourth line minutes in the NHL right from the get-go, at least to start, could be beneficial for him. And if he earns himself a little bit higher, a chance to go higher up the lineup, right? When you realize maybe he's having a good game. So you shoot him up with Matthews and Nyes for a couple of shifts, or you put him up with Tavares and Nylander, or maybe he goes up to the third line if he's like Max Domi is not doing what you need defensively. Okay, maybe we throw him up there for some defensive shifts. So it's possible that he can earn a couple more extra shifts throughout the game, I suppose. Maybe, some offensive shifts, maybe. But I just sometimes when you look at the roster crunch, and it's not a cap crunch this year like it's typically been, it's going to be a numbers game, right? How many guys can actually make the team? And you have to make the decision. Do we want our 12 best players, or is there someone at least comparable to Cowan? And that way we can send him down to the Marlies and get some top minutes in the top six. Like that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. I don't know the answer, obviously, but it sounds as though he's at least starting to turn some heads, and it sounds like a pretty tough conversation is gonna have to be had here between Leafs management and whether or not which direction they decide to go in. Give him that opportunity to prove himself in the NHL right from the get-go, or put him in the top six down in the Marlies and let him establish more of a pro style game down there as opposed to learning on the fly with only 11, 12 minutes a night on the fourth line.
Yeah, and look, I think when you hear Craig Berube talk about his compete and things like that, and him winning, him being stronger than people think. I think that's just the coach saying he's more ready for the NHL than I think some people give him credit for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Certainly more ready than he was a year ago. That at the
Absolutely.
very least is exactly what that tells me. Because Berube did not have this much praise for him a year ago. Whereas now it seems as though honestly, like he tested Cowan. He said, look, thought you had a decent camp, but we want you to work on these things. If you work on these things, you'll have a chance to make it next year. Sounds like he worked on them, and now Berube's living up to his word. He's getting his opportunity. He's skating with actual NHLers, right? He's not on that B squad, or skating, with like, I guess not Alex Steves, like Luke Hames. Like he's not online with Luke Hames right now. He's skating with NHLers. Yeah. So I think that's the opportunity that he's talking about.
Well, exactly. And, when it comes, like every player's development path is different too. Like we could say he can go and play a lot of top line minutes with the Marlies. Like the Marlies also, we've seen a lot of those guys play top minutes with the Marlies, and then they come to the NHL.
And, nothing,
right? If a guy's ready to play in the NHL right now, and look, he's had a few.
Other than, I guess, maybe Bobby McMahon is a guy who was like a top six player from the Marlies that made it to the next level. But then, like, how much further do you got to go back? Like Willie, Nazem? Is that how far you have to go to find guys
And like the
who?
McMahon wasn't even a draft pick. Like he was a guy they signed, and he was in
Yeah,
the East AHL. Then he got to the
yeah.
AHL.
I mean,
Almost,
Hyman, I guess. Hyman's another guy. It's
yeah. Like Hyman's another one.
similar develop, but
But forward wise, yeah, the Leafs just really haven't had a lot of player and that's
even
something.
defensively, like who defensively even have they like the development has not been great from
No,
that level, and maybe that's even something that you look at too, where it's like, well, they haven't really been. Now it's a different situation. It's a new coaching staff, new development
yeah,
staff, new scouting staff. Like it's completely different than it was 5-6 years ago. So I guess you have to give them a chance to show that they can, produce some NHLers, but it's not a great track record in the
no,
NHL. Like even like Nick Robertson was a guy who did well in the American League when he was sent down there, did very well. And he has yet to prove that he's a daily NHLer, an everyday guy.
exactly.
So maybe Cal would be better playing every other night against men in the NHL as opposed to top minutes in the American League. We'll see. We'll see what they decide to do there. But it's definitely a conversation that I didn't expect to be having so soon in camp. All right, on the other side, one game tonight for the Maple Leafs. Leafs going down to Montreal for their third preseason game. We'll come back, kind of tee you up, tell you where you can watch it, when you can watch it, and who might be suiting up for this one. So that's next in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. Third preseason game of preseason, I guess. Tonight, Toronto going into Montreal. I assume they're just going to send the B squad tonight, similar to the one we saw in Ottawa, right?
Yeah. I wonder if like a guy like Cowan doesn't get in. I didn't expect Cowan to play the other night, but he got in.
Yeah.
Like I would say him, Robertson probably out of like the B squad that played against Ottawa on Sunday. I doubt they would get in. But yeah, I think you'll see. I mean, Robertson did skate with that B squad.
Well,
so
so if we're looking at like group 1 and group 2, right? So I think like Robertson, Camp, Yarncroc, Ferber, Quillen, and Nylander would be part of that B squad from group 1. And then group 2, you're probably looking at what? Pizzetta, Hames, Lettieri, and then Vallis, Crew, and Boyd. Maybe they get a look at Domi. Maybe they throw Domi out there if he's ready to go. Although I think he came off the ice once they did a like a battle drill. So I don't know if he's been cleared for contact. Could be what does not allow him to get into this game tonight. But yeah, I would assume that it would be a majority of their B squad guys who are more so Marley's bound or press box bound when we talk about this Robertson, Camp, and Yarncroc guys.
Yeah, and it's just become a natural thing that to expect that for the road team, and like guys, you want to see who's trying to make that impression because there are quite a few players that are hoping to make an impression, but just not a lot of opportunity for open lineup spots right now.
Yeah, maybe we see Danford in tonight. Murmy's and Danford has been a pairing that's they've obviously been out there. Thrun and Villanove, maybe Weber and Benning could be a pairing that we see. Maybe that could possibly be the six defensemen that are out there if they're going to bring the B squad. I'll tell you who actually has been a player that I've been intrigued by throughout camp, who might have he might not make the team because there's already so many guys on one-way contracts and whatnot, but a guy who I would keep an eye on, who could play tonight and could also be like an early call-up candidate. Luke Hames seems to be turning some heads here, and he was someone who impressed us at the rookie showcase tournament, and it seems like he's been somewhat impressive also early on in Leafs camp as well. So if Luke Hames is playing tonight, he's kind of the guy that I want to watch because it seems like he might have an NHL future with this club.
Yeah, the Athletic did a feature on him, kind of like the Darkhorse of camp.
Yeah.
22-year-old, competitive, undrafted, but right out of the NCAA with Dartmouth. And I think he put up some decent points, 6 points in 9 games with the Marlies last year on amateur tryout. Like decent size too for a player his age. Like there's a lot of tools to him, and he's got the scoring touch. So like I do like that there's a bit of he'll likely start the year with the Marlies, but I mean, yeah, if you're looking at players that could get that easy call up, I think, as a center too, Leafs center depth we know is going to be tested at times, right? They don't have Max Domi can play center if an injury does come about, but you would like to see a guy like Luke Hames step up and show that he can provide, in a pinch, can come up and play some games. So, yeah, he's been a player that's caught a lot of eyes. A lot of people I talk to down there at camp, they say like Luke Hames is kind of like out of the B squad group. He's kind of one that's drawn a lot of attention.
Yeah, the one to keep an eye on. Yeah, Darkhorse is kind of the perfect descriptor for Luke Hames coming out of camp. He's got an opportunity here. Kind of like who was it last year? The player that they traded, the forecheck, back check, paycheck.
Grabankin.
Grabankin, yeah. He's kind of like, now it's a different player, obviously, different style player, but it's just kind of like one of those young guys who is a bit of a dark horse and maybe could, surprise. Maybe could surprise, but it'd be tough because there are already so many, one-way NHLers that are pretty much spoken for, at least in the top 12, if not 13, 14 NHLers deep. He'd have to really surprise, but he could be a guy to watch, moving forward. That's for sure. All right. I think anything else that you wanted to touch on tonight?
No, I think, I'm curious to see obviously who plays in Montreal, and we haven't really seen or heard a lot of Henry Thrun, which I know he was kind of just a throw in with the Ryan Reach trade, but like kind of wanted to see if there, what he has to offer. Like there are quite a few guys that haven't played yet in preseason.
Thrun's a guy, though, at Harvard who put up some decent numbers. Like his last 2 years at Harvard put up, 63 points in his last 2 years at Harvard. So, I mean, the guy can put up offense. I know that last year, just 12 points in 60 NHL games. But he is an interesting player. I'll give you that. He is someone who has an opportunity to be like, compete for that 7th defenseman role. I guess he's a left shot. So if this Simon Benoit injury lasts a little longer, he's someone who could definitely kind of move into that 6th defenseman role, potentially. So yeah, he's another guy that I want to keep an eye on as well and see what he's all about.
Yeah, other than that, like who's gonna get in that? Are we gonna see? I don't think we're gonna see Stolarz play, but like we haven't seen any of the NHL guys get a lot of action. It's been the AHL goalies, so curious to see who also would start next. I know that Stolarz was with Group 2.
Yeah,
maybe they might have to protect him a little bit with Joseph Wall also on the leave right now too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe wait until the next game where you got some more NHLers in the lineup so that it's more of a real feel, as opposed to playing like a chicken with their head cut off. If breakdowns happen left, right, and center with the B squad out there against Montreal's A squad. So, but we'll see. Excited for it. Should be fun. I believe it's 7:00 start tonight. 7 p.m. Puck drop. I believe it is. Sportsnet game, I want to say. You can watch it on Sportsnet and obviously, watch it, and we'll come back tomorrow and recap the game for you guys. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow to break down Leafs Habs preseason action. Go Leafs, go. Enjoy the game. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.